What's going on, guys? Thank you again for subscribing to this channel. It really does mean a lot. Just the idea of starting another channel, let alone even dealing with one channel, can be daunting. So it took me a while to get this going, but I'm glad that I did it because I have a lot of good information to share. My goal is to keep things really simple and streamlined. I want to create possibilities for you guys, inspire you to live a life that you honestly love and just like want to be excited about. Not every day is going to be great, but a life where you really see that you can break out of those cycles and the depression and the issues and the anxiety and the fear, whatever it might be. I want to help share those tips with you. Keep it really simple, not deal with lots of long editing. I just want to get as much content as I can that I think is going to add value to your life. So on to today's topic, your parents are children. Now I know this sounds some people it might be obvious, but I think most people are like, what are you talking about? If you're a parent, you might be upset to hear that. But even if you are a parent, I want you to think about the fact that you have parents too, and that they might, maybe not speaking to you, but I might be speaking about your parents. So wherever you are, everyone has a parent. There's no other way to exist in this world. Now this took me a long time to fully understand, but when I understood it, my entire life shifted. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what happened. So when I came to New York, at the time I was just starting to get into like spirituality and meditation, and I found this book on Buddhism, and it kind of changed my life, and I'll keep that for another video. But basically it really showed me about conditioning and how conditioning works, and how in your life, the more things that you take in this world, you condition yourself to have certain ideas and certain beliefs. And what that does is it kind of makes your whole world look a certain way. No matter what, you're conditioned to believe these things, whether you know it or not. You just make assumptions and you live by that way. So one of the biggest things I realized was, when you have parents, you create these ideals, like my parents are supposed to be my caretakers. They're supposed to be, some people think like their dad is like Superman and their mom is amazing, whatever it is. Like you have these different ideals of how your parents should be, and you're always comparing them to that. So when something breaks, I remember the first time I realized my dad wasn't invincible. You're a kid and you're like, oh, he's the one providing for me and he's doing all these great things. And one day I'm like, no, he's vulnerable too. He's got his own issues. He's got his own stuff. He's got X, Y, Z things that maybe I'm not even aware of. And that's when my idea of what I thought he was, it started to break. And what happened was I realized because I had this expectation, I was putting so much on him instead of taking the responsibility for myself. And what really clicked for me with this idea of like your parents are actually children is realizing that at some point in your life, like we're all born, obviously, we're all born as children and we grow up and we're raised. Now, when we look at our parents, we assume that they have this magical thing, this ability, this skill, whatever it might be. We assume they have this thing that like makes them an adult beyond just the fact that they just had a kid, right? It doesn't mean that emotionally they're as evolved as we've realized. Maybe, your parent, they're super successful at their job. They're really good at making money, at investments, at throwing parties, at saving people's lives. If they're a doctor, whatever it might be, they might have those skills, but it doesn't mean emotionally they have matured to the point where they actually are capable of doing things that you assume as a parent you can assume. And the reason I'm talking about this isn't to diss parents or to push blame on my parents or anything. It's to show you guys that this is the cycle that every single person has to go through, right? At some point in your life, just imagine this for a second. You're you, however old you are, one day you have a kid, and now you're the parent. Okay, there might be some books you read, but life is filled with having experiences and learning from those experiences, right? So like one day you're a parent now, and you're like, wait a minute, but I'm just me. I'm a kid who has a kid, so I have to be the parent. And that's how it is for most parents. Most parents, from the ones that I've talked to, like they don't really know what they were doing. They learned as they went, and they made lots of mistakes. And that's okay because that's part of life. And one day you might be in that situation. Maybe you have been in that situation. Maybe you have kids, and maybe you have parents and you think about, and you have issues with them, and there's struggles and stuff and relationships. And that's the reason I want to talk about this video, because if you can see your parent just for a minute, you can go back thinking they're a parent in a second, but just think about for a second the fact that they might also be a child. They might also have issues like you have. And the reason I want to tell you this is because if you can see that within your parent, you can look and say, okay, maybe my parent, I assume that they were supposed to be my caretaker, that they were supposed to provide for me in a certain way. Maybe my parent, I assumed that they were supposed to offer me certain life skills and knowledge and opportunities that they didn't, and I blame them for that, or I'm upset about that. I feel like I'm robbed of that. I was robbed of this in my childhood, whatever it is. okay, you can spend your life, you can do the blame game. You know, we know how that goes, or you can pause and think about that and think about what it must really be like for them. You know, it's probably extremely hard and probably kind of scary because you feel responsible over someone and you're still trying to be responsible for yourself. It's probably the situation if you could be 16 years old right now and imagine in 5 years you have a kid and you're like, oh wow, now I have to be responsible for this other thing. Is no different for your parents. And what we do is we create these illusions that our parents are supposed to be that way, and then we just completely, like, we create this false reality for ourselves. So in my situation, one day I basically had to tell my mom, this to go over how this went for me. I had to tell her that if she wanted to have a real relationship with me and a real connection, that she had to stop acting as my parent. Because that's another thing. Parents, they think they have to be a certain way. You know, you a child comes out of you. You know, you're a woman and you birth a child, and now you have this person that you're supposed to take care of and raise and do your best not to screw up like your parents did or whatever it is. But inevitably you go into your cycles and things happen, and problems come up. And for as a kid, it's like you hit that certain age, you know, when you're young and you need your parents, but you hit that certain age where like you start to rebel. You're a teen. You're like, get away from me, like stop being so whatever. But for a parent, that's weird because as a kid, you're like, I'm an individual. As a parent, they don't necessarily see you as an individual. They see you as their child that they've always raised. And even if you get older, it doesn't change their emotional connection to you. So I know people that like have these super tight bonds with their parents, almost to the point where it's kind of creepy and weird, because they're so close and so dependent on their parent, and their parent was never really able to break that mold. They never really allowed their child to sort of grow away from that. And I'm going to get into that in a whole other video called basically how to kindly tell your parents to go F off, you know. But the point is, like, they are raising you in a sense where you're actually their child, and then you grow up and you realize that you're their child, and you're like, I don't want this. Like, I want to be my own independent human. But all they can see is like, no, I raised you. I did all these things. For me, like, trying to give you your own responsibility is very scary. That's why most parents interfere with your life choices. That's why most parents think they know what's best for you. And in some cases, like, of course they have information, they have knowledge. They might know what's best for them, but usually they know what is safe for them. That's what I've found. So sometimes you have to have that conversation and get real with your parents and not come from a place of blame, not come from a place of like, you did this and you did that, or I can't stand you. It's like, but just be real and be honest. And what I said to my mom is, I said, Mom, listen, if we're gonna have a real conversation, real connection, you can't look at me like your son anymore. You can't treat me like a child. You have to treat me like a human being. And I wasn't saying, I'm de-sunning you, or that's not even a word, but I wasn't saying like I'm leaving the family. No, I said, you need to start treating me like an actual human being so we can have a real conversation, because I'm actually very smart. I've learned a lot about this world, how to live my own life to the best of my abilities. And if you want to be part of that and you want to understand that, great. If you just want to tell me how to live my life, well then guess what, like, that's just not going to work for me, and you're just going to push me further and further away. And I've had so many conversations with people about this, and the amazing thing is I see that transformation when they're actually able to sit down with their parent and not come from a place of blame. Because the second you blame someone, the second you start blaming your parent, or you do your thing, you get in your cycle, you get frustrated, then then people shut down, walls go up. I remember one day I was sitting at the beach, and my mom and I were getting to our usual little like bickering thing, and all of a sudden it clicked for me. I was like, I could spend my life being the son who thinks like he deserves this and that, and my mom can spend her whole life thinking like, you don't respect me, or I deserve more of this, or whatever. We could go within our little stories back and forth forever and keep this cycle going and get frustrated at each other, or I can break that right now. And that is exactly what I did. And I sat down, I was able to be honest with her and come from a place, again, not from blame, because blame would just make her put her walls up and, well, you did this, and well, I did this, and blah, blah. No, and just be honest and be real. And sometimes it's going to be hard, because for parents to hear this, it's so shocking, but what you're doing is you're breaking a circle, right? So in our life, we're creating these patterns, like I was talking about. We're creating these never-ending circles, and you can look at your parents, and you can look at their relationship with their parents, and their parents, and it goes on forever. And you can be that person right here in this moment to break that cycle. And this is just another step to creating the life that you want to live, because when you see who you are and you see the patterns that you've created, and you learn actually how to break them, it doesn't make life easier right away, but it makes life so much more exciting. Eventually, things will get easier, but to go into that cycle and break it, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of understanding, a lot of patience, a lot of self-love to really get there. But the possibilities are endless, because we all say it. Oh, excuse me. We all say that same thing. It's like, when I grow up, I'm not going to be like my parents. I'm going to do this different. A lot of people I hear, they're like, my parents raised me this way and they screwed up all these things. So I'm going to make sure when I raise my kids that I'm not going to do the same thing. But then what happens is they get into they have their own kids. I have a lot of friends now that are having kids. It's like the baby time situation for my friends. And they get in these situations and then they have their own kids. And the minute something happens, even though they want to do something different than their parents, that's what they were exposed to. Those are the patterns that they learned. So they end up doing the exact same things as their parents, and then they become who their parents are, some kind of odd combination of the two of them. And it's very common for people. I'm not saying it's wrong, but if you want the opportunity to actually break away from that, the first step is taking control of your own life, being real with your parents, stepping back and actually looking. And I advise you to start writing. If you want to if you're upset with someone in your life, say it's a mom or dad, and there's something that's frustrating, because I know so few people that don't have at least a problem with one of their parents in some way that they haven't resolved. So sit down and start writing about it. Just take a pad of paper or just your computer and write, what are those things that frustrate you, and then look over them and think about it. Is it really something that the parent is doing, or is it really just something that really frustrates you and they're not even aware of, right? If your parents are being mean and a dick, that's one thing, but for the most part, usually there's some kind of connection to why they're being that way, and it usually stems from their own relationship with their own parents. And if you can see that, then you can actually, it doesn't mean you're supposed to send them that letter or give all the writings to them, no, but use that as a tool to then be able to have a conversation. So when you're going into that conversation, you're aware that your parents have their own patterns that they might feed off of, right? They might have their own unresolved stuff that they're kind of playing out and talking to you, and you can break that and you can, listen, we're humans, we're adults, let's just have a conversation and be real. This is my life, this is the way that I want to live it. I get that you think you know what's best for me. I completely get why. You are my parent. You created me. You feel this responsibility. But if we're going to really have a good life together and a connection, you need to let me make my own decisions. That's all I'm going to say for this video. If you enjoy this, please subscribe, share your comments, share experiences that you've had, because people love to read comments, but not just like, of course you got the trolls out there in the back, but like honestly real experiences that have inspired you in your life to go out and make these changes. Let me know what other kind of content you want to see. If there's any problems in your life, if there's anything that you want to talk about, or have me talk about, I should say, please let me know. Anything in life, whether it's how to, follow your dream, how to move to New York, and how to do things on your own, create friends, community, whatever it is, let me know. I'm happy to answer. I'm here for that. I'm here for you guys. This experience in life is beautiful, and we can do it together. And I have so many more videos to come.